We're back with the Fractional Report, ladies and gentlemen, sponsored by Collectable. Mint Collective is getting closer, so I hope you guys get your tickets. I hope to see you guys there in Vegas. I know I'm excited. I know the big guy's getting excited. And I know our team's excited. We're going to have our videographer there for the first time ever.
Really? I'm excited about that. He's awesome.
I'm not sure if that's true because people bail last minute, but I have a feeling that we're going to have a few. Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm excited. It's nice. You know, he's not going to follow me everywhere, right? You know.
It's not. I'm not a big vlogger, but I do want to capture the moment, right? Like you said, so people who can't make it can see it back home. Maybe for that week we'll have a little bit more dynamic content. You know, be able to post stuff on YouTube. That's not just our show. You know.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I mean, I've never had In-N-Out Burger, and they are in Las Vegas, so that could be some great content. Cage's first In-N-Out Burger.
How many do you think you could eat?
I don't know. I'm hoping to go on a diet because, you know, Vegas is a little warmer than right now. I'm hoping to shed a little bit of weight between now and the January 28th.
How do you hope for something like that?
Because, you know, I don't want to be that sweaty. I don't be the sweaty guy.
No, I mean, I asked Manny. Manny's awesome guy on our team. Good personality. He always says the word try. And I said, we can't eat. Like,
there is no try, only do. What are you, Yoda?
I don't watch fantasy movies. I told you guys that yesterday, so I don't know if Yoda said that. But just real human beings have told me that. My mentors have told me that.
There is no try.
Yeah.
Guess what? There also is no Dana, only Zool. You don't know what movie that's from either. That's Ghostbusters.
So let me ask you. I want to get right into the data. Do you want to start with the question we got from our audience, or do you want to start with the data?
You fire away and let's rock. Whatever you like, man. I'm ready. You can fire from either gun. I'm ready to go. Shoot.
Give me your 5 assets on Collectable that you're most bearish for in 2022.
Ooh. The 5 that I'm most bearish on. It's going to be more than 5 assets. You know you can't ask me a question and actually get 5. Gleyber Torres, orange. You know, this guy played shortstop. You muted yourself. You're talking. You're probably saying something amazingly smart, but you're on mute, so we can't hear you. You're still on mute. Oh, you're back.
Awesome.
You have to explain to what bearish meant.
This new Apple MacBook update is horrendous. It could not be worse. Bearish is you're down on them. You think that they're going to go down.
You know what? I got to change my answer now that you explained what bearish meant. I thought it meant things that I was high on.
Do you think that everybody in the audience knows what bearish and bullish is?
They better. But yes, so thank you for explaining. Bearish means what we're down on. That's true. So what I'm down on. Gleyber Torres, orange, down on that. And so is the rest of the collecting world, it seems, because it has not performed well recently. And even in 2022, I mean, look, the Yankees haven't really signed anybody. But the people they're looking for are middle infielders. Correa's still out there. You know, Gleyber was a shortstop. You know, plays a little second base. There is no shortage of infielders already on their roster, and they're looking to sign 1, maybe 2. You know, Gleyber is one of those young guys that I'm sure can turn it around. But he did not look right last year. He did not look right the year before, and they tinkered with his swing, and he just doesn't look. You know, he doesn't look himself. He may be one of those guys that, you know, will perform one day, but just not in New York. So, you know, I like him. I was high on Gleyber for a long time, but the organization's actions show me that they're not looking at him as, like, you know, anything but maybe a bottom of the lineup type player. So, yeah.
Okay. So, Luca Nation, please join. If you're interested in submitting questions for the show, we're doing a little bit of a new segment. You guys that are on the app, or want to learn more about Fractional, you guys could ask us questions. Collectable has a Discord that you guys could join. You could message Collectable on Instagram and ask them and reach out to them with questions. So these are questions submitted by our audience. Go ahead.
Sweet. All right. So sticking with modern, MPJ championship ticket, a card that I gave as a play not that long ago, a card that had a buyout offer that was rejected. And it is a great example of, you know, the things that make Fractional great, right? Because performance matters, you know, and a card like that with modern, you know, this is a guy who came into the season with a lot of hype, People thought he was going to have a great year. He had that contract extension. The team believed in him. People believed in him. And the owners of that asset believed in him so much that they did not take a buyout. And now he's out for the season. And that's his second, major setback due to health, which has
you got to ask how healthy someone with a few back surgeries at the age of
people
20.
wondering what the future holds, if the future has anything, right? That's the thing, right? So that's something to be bearish about, right? So it's one of those assets that's difficult.
I gotta give the Worf Sports Cards so much credit. One, for growing his business, doing things the right way. I hope, Worf, if you're out there, I hope to see you in Vegas. If you can't get a ticket, reach out. I'd be happy to figure that out for you. But he is Michael Porter Jr.'s biggest confidant. Like, anytime anyone says anything about MPJ, Worf's got this paragraph typed up. He's ready to defend him. He's I coached him in high school. He's such a good guy. So there is hope. There is hope for Michael Porter.
Bo Jackson was a great guy too, but sometimes when you get an injury, you don't come back the same. So that's number two. You want to stick with modern. The Trevor Lawrence Leaf Basket I am bearish on. Mostly because that made sense when it was the only thing out there. And as 2022 progresses, Trevor Lawrence is probably not going to play that much in the beginning half of 2022 because his team is probably not going to be in the playoffs. So he's going to end 2021 here and basically be done. And there's going to be cards that people want to collect more than his Leaf Basket. Prism will come out. He'll have National Treasures will come out. He'll have other cards that people will want to invest money in for him. So it's not a Trevor Lawrence condemnation per se. It's more bearish on the basket itself. A larger one, Jason Tatum cards I'm bearish on. There's a couple of them on Collectable. A couple of really nice ones too. And, he was one of those guys that could have turned it into something huge. And he still may. I just don't believe it. I'm bearish on Tatum. I think that team's a mess. You talked about it today on our earlier show and said that, it just doesn't look like he and Jaylen Brown can play together. And I think you're right. Sometimes he looks great. And, it's funny, the timing of this, he had a great game yesterday. But sometimes he just looks lost. And the price of some of the items that he has, it already is pricing in that he's going to be one of the top 5 players in the league for the next decade. And I do not believe that he is going to be. So I'm bearish on his cards. The Seager Orange Basket, which was one of those up in the air things. This is one that I'll talk about for right now. So this week coming up and for 2022 as bearish. Seager was one of the big free agent names. I was hoping he was going to go to the Yankees. And it's amazing how on-field performance is not the only thing that can be a driver in value. Had he signed with the Yankees, I would be in a very different position on this card. So he hasn't done anything. He hasn't gone out there and not performed, right? But this is a player who was with the Dodgers, a perennial favorite to play meaningful baseball in October and potentially win a World Series, play in the World Series. He's been in the national spotlight for a long time. Now he signed this big deal. He did not go to the Yankees. He went to the Texas Rangers, a team that lost 105 games last year. Right, a team that, with his signing and the other 2 huge free agent signings that Texas went out and spent money to try to compete, they still went from a plus 15,000 to plus 9,000 to win the World Series. They're not a favorite. They're not even close to a favorite in the American League. So why I'm bearish on him is he may have a great season. He may perform and he may justify that huge contract he just signed, but playing for the Texas Rangers, no one's going to care. And he's not going to be playing meaningful games in October. And the value of Seager's basket on Collectable, I believe, has taken a hit based on where he has signed his contract. So I'm bearish on that. And then the last one is the Roger Maris rookie PSA 9. And I'm a Yankee fan, but I had to throw some vintage in here. And this is a real, news matters, right? And we're recording this here Sunday evening. And I was surprised by the Hall of Fame vote tonight. Lefty O'Doul, one of my favorites, did not make it into the Hall of Fame. Minnie Minoso did. Several players did make it in, but one player who did not make it in again in the veterans round, there's two different groups of veterans rounds, was Roger Maris, who was on the ticket again to get in tonight, and now he'll have to wait several years again. Well, he'll wait, his nomination, his potential to get in the Hall will have to wait again several years before he comes up. I think that, there was a little bit of hope for Hall of Fame for him built into some of his card value, that 9 especially. I'm bearish on it in the future one because there's nothing about Maris's name now that gets brought up. He's not in the Hall of Fame. He's no longer the record holder for home runs. He's now 4th, depending upon where you want to throw your hat in the ring on steroids. But Bonds, McGuire, and Sosa all had more home runs than him. So now, if somebody ever challenged 73 home runs for a season, if they're sitting there with like Ohtani with 30 something at the All-Star break, no one's saying, does he have a shot to beat Maris? It's Bonds. It's McGuire, Sosa. Maris's name just doesn't come up anymore the way that it used to. And he had a very good couple of years, but here's a guy who he doesn't really mean that much to the general collecting public, who are under the age of, say, 60 right now. Right? I mean, he was a great player in the 60s.
He gets lost in the sauce a little bit too, right? Like there's so many Yankee greats that what is he?
He didn't come up with the Yankees, and I don't think he finished with the Yankees, but he definitely had his best seasons with the Yankees. He won an MVP with the Yankees, I think.
Kind of Durant-like? Would you compare that maybe to?
Well, I mean, the Yankees love him because he's a record holder. But remember, the record he broke was already a Yankee record. It was Ruth, and that actually came with a little hatred when it happened. They grew to love him. Maris's family was there for the whole McGuire run when McGuire was trying to set that record, and he was huge in the in the 90s bringing baseball back. The family was there, for all that stuff, and his name was out there. They did movies about him, 61, right? About how he had to deal with the pressure, dealing with the ghost of the babe and the whole deal. But it's just one of those things where if you look at the up and down on Collectibles lineup of assets, right? You have your Mickey Mantles, you have your Jackie Robinsons, you have your Willie Mays, you have guys that are that Mount Rushmore of baseball, and unfortunately, Roger Maris just doesn't make it on that list. So I threw some vintage in as a little bonus play, and given the fact that the news just came out today that voting did not go in favor of Maris getting in the Hall of Fame backdoor, I figured I'd throw him on there also as somebody I'd be a little bearish on going forward into 2022.
It's an interesting point, right? Like to also know the type of people that invest in fractional, right? Like there's obviously Maris collectors out there, right? But that's not the general public who would invest in a Mantle, a Jordan, a LeBron. It's very niche and very specific. I want a Maris card. I go out to eBay and buy it. What is there? 100, 200 Maris collectors. Where fractional is best used for, I guess, a little bit more popular athletes, for lack of a better word.
Well, the high end creme de la creme, like you want fractional. The thought behind it is, it's going to be the card. The high end card you can't get yourself, or a one of one. But it should be the right one of one. Like I thought about putting for bearish on here the Luka White Sparkle or the Jokic, like the Jokic one of one. That's odd because those are one of one, sure, but they're not the right one of ones for those guys. So all right, so I talked a lot about this. Let me hear your 5.
Well, the Luka White Sparkle. I think the hobby's catching on to like that whole parallel thing, right? Like you even mocked it, right? Like all the pundits were saying. Get numbered cards, get numbered cards, get numbered cards. Remember that? Like go from base to numbered as if it was like some kind of like, sports cards graduate course. But I think people are catching on that there's just a ton of parallels. And I think some fall by the wayside. And to me, the White Sparkle never had an appeal. I don't think culturally it has a ton of appeal either. You don't see a lot of big collectors flaunting White Sparkle. Nor do I see a ton of demand from, retail investors who want to buy White Sparkle. I think they would prefer gold. I think they'd prefer silver. I think they would prefer a color match, a red, a blue. I think they much prefer those than So that one, and then another one. It was the Josh Allen gold BGS 9.5 card. And it's not that I'm bearish on Josh Allen. I just think that card has run up so much that anything short of a Super Bowl appearance, I don't know if it holds. I really don't. I'm not even sure with a Super Bowl appearance if it holds because of how much it's run up. And let me pull up the info here. It does have the gold thing going for it, but it's a min gem, and Cage, it IPO'd for $30K, and now it's $120,000. And this isn't a PSA 10. This is a min gem 9.5. I know it's gold, but still, that's 4x. That's 4x in less than 6 months. Less than 6 months, and I think that card has some downside just because of how much it's run.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Especially, listen, there's Herbert, there's Mahomes, there's Josh Allen. They're all on Collectable, right? And they're all in the AFC. Two of them, So two of them max can even make the AFC Championship game.
Right.
One can make the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? So one of them won't even get into the AFC Championship. So and that doesn't mean even the most talented QB of them will make it. The best team will make it. Maybe none of them make it to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl. So yeah, I mean, it's difficult when you look at, that's one where performance will matter. If he's not the one that gets to the AFC Championship game, gets the Super Bowl, wins the Super Bowl, that card is already priced for that. So I'm with you on that. That was definitely one that I looked at 100%. What else you got?
How about flip it? What are 5 cards you're bullish on?
Okay, so I went very, very easy on this one, right? I believe that this platform, Fractional, is for those cards that when you close your eyes and you think iconic, it's an iconic player, it's an iconic card, it's something that you think of, it's something that you may not get to see yourself. You know what I mean? It's not about the Gleyber Torres cards, right? It's not about the Seager cards. So what I did was I thought to myself, all right, so what are cards that if I won the lottery, right? If I got in the right NFT today, maybe Flower Girls or whatever it is, and all of a sudden it exploded and I was wealthy, right?
You'd buy a Mantle 8.
I'd buy the Mantle 8. It's number one on my thing. 100%.
That was number one on my thing.
100%.
The Mantle 8 is like it's like a well-paying treasury bond of the hobby. As long as the hobby's going to be here, I think a Mantle in any grade, really, but let's say 7 or higher, 8 or higher. Cage, where do you draw the line?
Right now,
a PSA 5?
I think 5 or higher is a 6-figure card, I think. But no, 8 is definitely the thing, right? Because there's a cutoff of what, 8, I think right now, 8 and above is 7 figures. All right. I think there will be a time soon where 7 becomes 7 figures, but it's not there now. So yeah, when you're talking about a collectible that's 7 figures, that's what Fractional is there for. There's not that many people who are going to go out there and shell out that kind of money for a card. I threw in there for the same reason the Brady playoff contenders basket. Goes without saying why that's there. And although you are going to hate it, the 03 LeBron Exquisite. Because I now have held that card in my hand this past week at Bleaker Trading. And it's funny to see people's reaction when they see that card. When it's like, well, because that card was, and look, obviously pricing is very different on these things, but that card, when I was looking at it, was next to a Jordan PSA 10. And it was like having Luka Prism 1-of-1 rookie against the Trey Silver. That was the people were looking at the two, you know what I mean? Which is, crazy for me, but that's what you get with a rookie numbered out of 99 RPA of someone who's still playing at a high level versus somebody who hasn't played in quite a long time, and there's 300 and something PSA 10s of the card. It's rare just because it's rare. People don't realize that, right? So there's 99 of them out there, right? Yeah, there's only 300 and something Jordan 10s, but you could see a Jordan 9. There's plenty of Jordan 9s out there, right? And it's close enough, So, just holding a card like that, which I've held expensive cards, but holding a card like that and being like, wow, look at this. How much? 1 point what? What do you value this thing at? 1 point what? It's an amazing thing to kind of have that, but more importantly, the big collectors now, right? We say that the Jordan 10 is kind of like your key to that table of the big players. I am of the opinion that the way the hobby has swung, that card is also a key. It may be the key now because the younger people who are coming in, the younger people who are making money, the people who are, making crypto money, the sports folks who are out there, and they look, what's the record? What's the record NBA card? Or what's the one that keeps setting records? Oh, it's that? It's the LeBron? All right, well, I got to get one of those LeBrons. There's only, how many? 99 of them? So
I put game worn rookie year sneakers from LeBron on mine.
Nice. That's definitely a scarce item.
Yeah, because imagine Jordan's rookie year sneaks, right? And to this generation, LeBron is their Jordan. So I don't know if that's for 2022, but for the next 10, 15 years, I do think that's a good item.
Yeah. I put the Ruth SGC 8 on there also just because of comparison shopping, just because, the recent, Heritage auction ending. We talked about this last week. We talked about, how you could have two different SGC 8s. So a comp on one, which is a really nice one, might not necessarily be the comp on the one on Collectable. But the one on Collectable is significantly lower in price than the one that ended at auction recently. There's a lot of reasons that could be the case, but it does make me, bullish on that. Plus, even though Ruth played 100 years ago, there's never a time where Ruth hasn't been relevant. I don't think there ever will be a time where Ruth won't be relevant. So that's a deal. And the other one I threw on here, although guys, be mindful of this one. I'm bullish on the player and the card, but I think based on some recent comps, the valuation of this card currently on Collectable is slightly high. But if the question is who am I bullish on for 2022, that Steph Curry National Treasures card is one that has to be on the list. He's one of these guys that, he's not in the same conversation as Jordan, LeBron, Ruth, and Mantle. But I wanted to get something in there that's a little more, a little more modern. Talk about a guy who's playing at a high level right now. So 2022 could see him win another championship, an MVP. He's probably the front runner or the favorite for both right now as his team gets healthier, as his team has the best record. As they just beat the team that had the longest winning streak and hadn't lost in a month. And he doesn't even have Clay back yet.
And Clay come back?
Correct. So, if we're talking about, 2022, as the first half of that unfolds, if you have Steph Curry winning a championship and an MVP, you got to figure his card's going to, move in the upward direction. So I'm bullish on him as well. And even if he doesn't, he played MVP level last year. He's playing MVP level this year. This is a guy who still has a lot of basketball left to play. And numbers will start to accumulate. And, I wonder
if the Celtics are making any calls to the Warriors. I would be interested. The Warriors are a sneaky team. Just on your Curry play, I wouldn't be surprised to see. If you were Jameis Wiseman comes back, has a few good games. Would you trade Wiseman and a pick for Jaylen Brown?
No.
For who?
You need a big man. Wiseman coming back, he has to play a big man role, and if they're going to trade him, they have to get at least a serviceable, you're talking Jared Allen type big man, because in the West there are guys, and even in the East as they get deep into the playoffs, you need somebody to play DeAndre Ayton in a series. You need somebody to play Embiid. You need somebody in there, even if it's the Hawks are faltering and you're getting a Clint Capella back in a trade. You know what I mean? I'm not saying Capella for Wiseman. I'm talking about maybe they give you Collins and Capella, or something like that. You need a big man. Otherwise,
I'm curious. I'm curious to see if there's any offseason moves or midseason moves that help some teams, because there is a lot of parity in the NBA, and there are a lot of teams that are right on the edge that if they made one move, they'd be above the pack. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So I'm curious to see.
100%. Well, there's my ones that I'm bullish on. I like the memorabilia play, man. I have to be more mindful of that because the memorabilia, index, it moves pretty well. And, the thought here is that the stuff that is fractional is scarce. You're looking for things that are not replicable, not something you can go out and find yourself, which is why, Will Chamberlain's high school uniform will sell for what it sells for. It's not something you're going to go to, the corner store and pick up. So, but yeah, that's a fun little segment there. The 5 bearish, 5 bullish for the next year.
So let me go down some data and we'll wrap here.
Shoot.
You'll stop me if there's anything interesting. We'll dive into it. So real quick, coming up IPO, we have Otto Graham, 1950 Bowman PSA 9, market cap 42,850. Who is that, Cage?
A football player.
Okay.
He's a football player. Otto Graham.
Well,
so it's funny you should ask that because
Otto Porter Jr.?
No, and it's not Michael Porter Jr. or Otto Porter Jr. No, it's a relevant question, right? Because, here's a guy who played quarterback for the Browns, I think, and you don't know who he is, and you're in your 30s, and people who would be, collecting, there's a guy who's been dead for almost 20 years, right? So people don't know who he is. People don't. So it's an interesting thing, man, because, obviously, he's sort of like a George Mikan type. He was one of the guys that people thought was like one of the dominant players of the era. But who's heard of George Mikan? A lot of. I mean, look, you hear his name now, but only in stories, right? A lot of people didn't see him play, right? But I'm pretty sure, and it was a different league back then, but I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, you can look this up, but he took the Browns, I think, to the championship game. Didn't win it every year, but he took the Browns to the championship. It was like LeBron going to the finals every year. He took the Browns to the championship game, I think, every year for 12 straight years. I think it was like 46 to 55 maybe, or I may have the years wrong. But like, you're talking about a guy who was like head and shoulders above any other competition in the league, and they won like 80-something% of their games, and a different league. It wasn't the NFL back then. There wasn't the Super Bowl and all that stuff. But this is one of those guys that just was thought of as like a pioneer of the game, and head and shoulders better.
All right,
but
Sandy
it's not somebody
Koufax.
I would invest in, and I think I know more about him than most.
So here's where it gets good. Sandy Koufax, 1956 tops, gray back, PSA 9, 33,750. And here's where it really gets good. LeBron James rookie season game worn sneakers, photo matched to 3 different games, 450,000 at $10 a share. I think that one sells out so fast. I think that's when you, even if it's 10, 20 bucks, I think that's one you get into. How many of those are there? Like, how many rookie season sneakers are really available? Right?
Yeah,
like, you got to know he has a few that he's keeping.
Right. And Kevin Hart's kids got a few. And
What?
Didn't you see Russell Westbrook give Kevin Hart's son his shoes at the end of the game the other day? I guess Kevin Hart sits courtside, and you see Russell Westbrook take his shoes off, hand this sweaty pair of sneakers to this kid. But yeah, likely Kevin Hart's son was probably not even alive LeBron's rookie year. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a scarce item.
Dude, 100%. You know culture. You know all the ins and outs.
I just
who's friends with who.
I'm on Instagram a lot because I answer DMs. If somebody messages me, somebody's like, "Hey, I got a cool message from one of our partners in the Mint Collective. They're having a meeting they're having a meeting with a local sports team. You spoke to them recently." And hey, what kind of pitches should I make to the local sports team about my store and that kind of stuff? And I gave him some ideas. I told him, I said, what's on the back of the local team's ticket stub? It used to be when I go to a Knick game, they have Modell's 10% off. Why not put a little something for your store on there? 10% off, come to the store, use the ticket, blah, blah, blah. Anybody who goes to the game, how about a VIP thing? Once a month, whoever spends the most money in your store, gets to high five the team as they're on their way out of the tunnel. I mean, there's a million cool things you could do,
That is cool. Like, for fractional companies, that would be cool if you could scan a QR code and they would have like a page of you could invest in memorabilia of guys that are playing.
Yeah, exactly. But so anyway, that's why I know a little bit about it, a little bit of everything, because I'm on Instagram and I see, I scroll through and it's like, oh, look, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Hart's short.
So just quick data, flat across the board, down 2.5% for collectibles, sports cars, memorabilia. And as much as we think, sometimes, we think in our mind that the market is kind of dropping. I think what we're seeing is a bit of inactivity more than any kind of movement up or down. Some people are taking profits. Some people with money are buying in. There's not a lot of volatility right now.
100% right. If you review the
Outside of
data I
crypto.
did, I reviewed the data this week over week, and the vast majority, an overwhelming majority of items closed this past Friday at the same price they were the Friday before. That shows a little lack of liquidity, but also shows, like you said, a little stagnant market, except for things that have some news. I can go through a couple that I thought were relevant if you like. I don't know if you're done going through your stuff. Please. So you tell me what you think about this data on each one of them, because some of them I think it's a good sign, some of them I think it's a bad sign, some of them I think are buy opportunities, and some of them I think that they're being beat up for a reason. Number one, last week $16 a share, this week down to $13.25. That's a nice little drop there. You guys can do the math. It's about 20% drop, right? Lowest price since August. IPO'd at 20. And we've talked about this a bunch of times. It's our good friend, the Trey, Ja, Zion, Luca silver basket with two PSA 10s of each. And this has the potential to drop even further, guys, because look who's in it. The Luca PSA 10 silver, when we talked about this in August when it was this low, was $4,000 or $5,000. Now it's in the threes. Trey's stuff has not improved in price. Ja is, injured, and Zion is trying to make his way back and had a little bit of a setback, and his foot is starting to hurt again. So this basket, being at its lowest that it's been since August should not surprise anyone, and I think it may still have some room to go down. Thoughts?
I'm worried about modern NBA base and silvers.
Well, we talked about this
in a basket form. It's a tough investment.
We talked about this in August. This is one, the kind of thing that I don't think fractional should be used for, because you can go to almost any card show and build this basket yourself if you wanted to, which is very different than most of the other cards on here. You ready for this?
I would also worry about, how do investors interpret, Luca has a good game, but Trey has a really bad game type of thing. You know what I mean? How do you really quantify that?
100%.
Go ahead, keep rocking.
So, another one, which may still go down, but at some point I think there will be a buying opportunity on this one. IPO to 10 was $6.75 last week and is down to $5 a share at the close. Another one that's down 20-something% right there, to go down from 6.75 down to 5. It's a pretty big drop. That is the Tatis 2016 Bowman Blue BGS 10. Now sitting at half.
Black label, right?
Black label, yep. Yeah. So that is now half of what it IPO'd at, right? It IPO'd at a time where Tatis was the favorite for the MVP. And, this one here, even though it's 50% of what the IPO was, I believe that, nobody's thinking about baseball right now. That may change. Maybe some good news about this lockout. Maybe they start to talk about, pitchers and catchers. Maybe San Diego signs somebody, decent during this, once they're able to start signing people again. But this one may have some room to continue to go down. So interesting stuff, I got to tell you.
I do think Tatis has kind of shown us a pattern that he's going to have 2-3 month span during the season where he looks like an MVP. But people, this, baseball is a really long season. And putting together a full season, even Mike Trout has struggled with that recently, So Tatis, there's actually an opportunity to buy Tatis. You just have to figure out the timing with him.
Trout's another one, right? We'll talk about Trout another day. We can dedicate a whole episode to Trout and how this may be the last season where he's able to get a pass. Guy hasn't played a full season in a long time. And he's still pretty young, but ultimately, you go 3 straight seasons where you can't finish the season. The stats that you were compiling, that people were counting on you becoming a top 10 in almost every category.
Yeah, they kind of prorate it, right?
Harder to do that when you're missing half season every year, and you're no longer 26. So in any event,
it's true. It's true. With consistency, people start to take your past performance and just kind of project it to the future. They're doing this with LeBron beating Kareem, right?
Yep.
They just assume that he's going to average this many points, he's going to play this many games, but your body does break down. Your body does break down, and sometimes one injury compounds another injury, compounds another injury. I will say though, I'm not a buyer of Trout. I guess I wonder what if he comes back and becomes back to his MVP form. Maybe
Yeah.
his core does go.
Oh, I think and he has an MVP on his team now. I mean, Otani won the MVP. There's definitely some, reason to think that team can be good, especially if they add a couple pieces and, that kind of stuff. Okay, so one that is down from the IPO, but I believe, and I want to hear what you have to think about this, I believe has found the floor. If you were investing in one type of year jersey type card, what would it be?
One type of year jersey. Say again?
No, gear. Would you say it's the logo man? Logo man cards are like, the creme.
I think logo man cards are the coolest.
So
And I like the thread logo mans. I don't like the new Panini logo mans.
So I like the IPO at 10 was down to $5.48 last week, up to $6.75. So I think it hit a floor, and I think there's room for it to go back up because even though it bounced from last week to this week, I think that's showing you a little of movement back up, a little support there. The Magic Bird Logo Man Duel. Really cool looking card, right? Really cool looking card.
When I first entered the hobby, logo mans were what I was told are true one of ones. Like that's how I interpreted one of one. Like it's a logo man. That's the one of that year. Yep. Like if I wanted a logo man, one of one from the 2000 to 2010, I would buy the logo man of that player.
So that one's cool because, it was as high as, I think, 10.1, slightly higher than its IPO of 10 during the summer, but it has retreated since, and last week hit that 5.48 and kind of bounced in trading this week. And I think that maybe, you may be able to start seeing a little momentum and ride that one back up. Cool. Well, people are looking for that kind of stuff in basketball. You know what I mean? And that one's not valued as high as you would think when it's Magic Bird Dual Logo Man. Another one that may not factor in recent news of him winning the Ballon d'Or. Messi rookie basket, right? IPO of 10 was 6.2 last week, down to 5.75, which is its lowest ever price since it came on secondary, right? This is a guy who is thought of as a great, if not one of the greats, the greatest soccer player, right up there in the top 5, Pele's name and that kind of stuff. He's still playing. He's still playing at a high level. He's on a super team now that's probably going to win, in the French league. And you have all of these things coming up. He won the Copa America. He's going to be playing in the World Cup with a little less pressure because of that. And if he happens to win the World Cup or have a great showing in the World Cup, getting to purchase a card like this, that's 45% off of the IPO price and off of its secondary high. That's that's just one that I think, deserves a little attention.
It's going to be interesting, man. World Cup is once we turn the calendar year and get into like that February timeframe, I think we're going to see a ton of World Cup stuff.
So the last one is this, and it remains to be seen. And as we record this, the Sunday Night Football game is starting, and Patrick Mahomes, the next couple of weeks are, I think, going to show a lot. But this one is more of a chart play, right? This is one, his National Treasures is down to 5.5, IPO'd at 10. And a couple weeks back when he was having, a bad run before he started to turn it around here, this is exactly the number that it bounced off of last time. It got as low as 5.5, hit that kind of what let's call support if you're looking at it like a chart, and started moving back up. Came back down to 5.5, which is where it is. Again, lowest secondary. I'm betting that as long as he does not have a horrible performance tonight and next week and his team is still there for the playoffs, that 5.5 is support, and you're going to see that one move up. And if they turn it around and the Chiefs are a Super Bowl team again, you were able to buy a heck of a dip. I don't know whether that happens. He has not looked good. His team has not looked great. He's throwing a lot of interceptions, I think 11. But that was one where if he does what people think he's going to do, and this matches up the way the chart looks, that 5.5 has been the low support. It has not fallen below there, and it did bounce off of it already once. So just kind of like, checking out the chart on that one.
Gretzky OPG PSA 9, not the nicest copy either. Where do you think that goes? You think that the Gretzky market, he's the greatest ever, right?
Yep.
But it's hockey where there's a little bit less demand than other sports. You think hockey retains relevancy in sports cards?
I do. And there's a rabid fan base of hockey, and Gretzky is, clear cut number one. It's a funny thing, right? Because there are two tens, which makes it interesting, right? Because, that 9 has always been compared to the Jordan PSA 10, right? And for a while there, they were a similar price. Now, obviously, the Gretzky is a little less than the Jordan is now. But what the Jordan one, what you could say was, it was not improvable, right? You had a 10, you had a 10. You had a 9, there were still two people out there who got to sit at the real dais, and they got to go to the Viennese table first for dessert at the bar mitzvah. But instead, you had the 9, right? So that's one. And two, the little interesting wrinkle with the Gretzky card that I think pulls it down a little bit. I love it. I want to own one of those cards myself, so don't get me wrong here. I mean, I'm not a huge hockey guy, but that's like Mount Rushmore type stuff, right? There's also a Topps version. So, what Jordan's card has is that it's the 86 Fleer. Sure, there's the XRC star card and stuff like that, but the same exact card with the same exact image was made in that year in Topps. So you can get that PSA 9, or you can get a PSA 8, or you could get, where's the PSA 9 Topps? Does that kind of fall as like a 1A, 1B option? It's definitely less money. People want the O-Pee-Chee because it's a card of a Canadian team, Canadian player, and hockey is pretty big up in Canada, so people want that O-Pee-Chee card, and it definitely carries a premium over the Topps. But if somebody's got, the ability to buy, to spend 60 or 70% of that 9 on the O-Pee-Chee, maybe they buy a 9 Topps instead of buying an 8 O-Pee-Chee, so it's just weird because I think that combined with the fact that it's not one of the two 10s kind of pulls that card down a little bit. It's an awesome card. Eye appeal on that is a huge differentiator. Yeah. The white on the side where it's cut is a huge part of it. What the card looks like can change the value on that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, which is nuts, but that's the way it is.
Last one, and this is probably the best opportunity on the market. I think you touched on it, the 33 Ruth Gowdy SGC8.
Yep.
It had a bit of a run up the last 2 weeks. It was kind of down 2% this week, but the real kicker on this card is on Collectable, it's 189K, but Heritage auction closed at 288K.
Yep.
And I mean, that's a huge delta right there, and I think that's going to be exploited.
Yeah, well, we talked about that, right? So I mean, they're both 8s, but the one on Heritage is a beautiful card. The one on Collectible is a very nice card also, but when you're talking about that type of card, the eye appeal does really matter. Yep. But that's a huge delta for eye appeal, right? It's $100,000. I mean, that's a huge differentiator there. So yeah.
Well, usually how I think about it is you got the guy who loves that person who overpaid, not really overpaid for the newly graded Michael Jordan PSA 10 on PWCC for the eye appeal, one of the nicest ones ever. There's collectors who love that, but then there's people who are like, I don't care, the grade's going to be the grade, and there's an opportunity, right? It's kind of like that rubber band effect. So that's it. Any final words before we cap?
Yeah, man. Mint Collective, January 28th to the 30th. We will both be there. The list of folks who are going to be there is a pretty darn impressive one. So if you have any questions about it, reach out. Check out Mint Collective. They're on all the socials. You can reach out to us if you have any questions. And yeah, grab your tickets. We hope to see you there. I'm really looking forward to that because I mean, it's not the national. But it's cool to shake hands, meet the folks, talk to other folks in the hobby, and just get into it. Buy some cards.
Excited to meet people outside the hobby too. Like it seems like there's going to be people who aren't true hobbyists, right? And I want to hear what they have to say about sports cards, memorabilia, because we are like this tight knit crew in the hobby, but I do wonder what the outside world and how they view memorabilia, sports cards, and all that stuff. Because Chris Pratt, the actor,
Pratt.
His prized possession. He put this in an Instagram post. Is his Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck card, and that's cool, right? You would never really know that unless you met them at or he puts it in a story. So Dana White. Like, does Dana White collect cards? You know what I mean? So that's what I'm curious about.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, we'll definitely find out. I'm sure we'll have some stories to share with our crew. Thanks for listening, everybody.